my experience going bald and the advice that I would share with other people who are currently going through being bald as well. Okay, so let's get straight into it. So, first and foremost, you may hear a lot of people say this and it may sound cliche. Okay, but I would just say the sooner you embrace it, the better. Okay, so when I first started going bald, the mode that I went into was, what is going on here? I'm not used to this. I'm used to having dreadlocks. I'm used to having an afro. I'm used to having curls and things like that. Just totally not used to it. I was kind of shocked, like, hey, what's going on? My hair is thinning in the front and it's thinning in the crown too. Um, Very surprising to me. I totally did not expect that. So what I began to do was, like a lot of people do, hop on Google. Hey, what's going on? How can I regrow my hair and things like that? So one of the first things that I did, I went and bought some biotin shampoo, because I heard that biotin, can help regrow your hair and things like that. So I would put biotin shampoo on it all the time, all types of creams and lotions and stuff like that. So and my hope was that, okay, this is gonna help my hair grow back. So I kind of got tired of that. That went on for like a year or so, and then I moved on to minoxidil. Okay, that's what helped me the best. I mean, the most. I guess you would say. Okay, so minoxidil, I would put it in my thinning areas right here, and in the crown of my hair as well. And it was a great product, but it would leave your hair very dry wherever you applied it at. So I did feel like I saw results, but at the same time, it never quite caught up with the thickness of the rest of my hair. So that went on for like a couple of years as well. And eventually I just kind of threw my hands up, like, forget it. And then I went back into the same mode again, like, nah, I want to try to regrow my hair back, because when you're used to having hair all your life, and then now you're losing it, now you don't have it anymore, you're like, man, how can I get it back? I would think that that's a lot of people's natural thought. That was my thought. So I went back to doing minoxidil again, same results. It did work for me. It worked for me, but it never matched. Um, it never matched the thickness of the hair um, that surrounded my thinning areas. Okay, so I'm like, nah. It took me a while again, maybe like another like 6 months or something like that, to say, you know what, I'm done with minoxidil too. I'm not doing this no more. So I forgot to mention, in between that, I would use the hair fibers. At the time, my barber was still cutting my hair, so he would put the hair fibers in. Now that looked really nice. When I got married at the age of 27. Okay, so when I got married, I had fibers in my hair, to disguise those thin areas, and that's in my 20s, So, of course, being in your 20s, you may be even in your younger 20s. I don't know, if you're watching this video, but yeah, it's being in your 20s and experiencing it. I think how old was I? I was 27 when I got married. And that thinning started when I was, how old was I? I want to say 23 or 24. So, man, young 20s for me. 23, 24, when I first started noticing that thinning. But anyway, I would just suggest, and it's up to you. It's not a right or wrong thing, really. But the sooner you embrace it, the better. Just my personal experience, my personal opinion, after years of just going back and forth between minoxidil, hair fibers, biotin shampoo, lotions, creams, all this other stuff, So that's what I would suggest. Just embrace it, even wearing hats and stuff, hats or scarves, bandanas, whatever it is that you can possibly, try to disguise your baldness with, or your bald spots with, or whatever. I would just suggest, I mean, not to say there's anything wrong with wearing a bandana or a hat or a scarf or a hoodie or something like that. There's nothing wrong with it, but I would just suggest, if you're gonna do it, make sure you're not doing it to hide something. That's just my personal opinion. Okay. Not saying that if someone does do it that they're wrong. It's just that you kind of set yourself up for odd moments, kind of, So if you're always wearing a hat to hide your baldness or your bald spots, and then people haven't seen you without a hat in 10 years, and you show up for Christmas dinner around family, it's like, oh, who is this guy? So, just to avoid those situations, I think it's just best to just embrace it, even to this day, I joke about it and things like that. Like, I joke about my balding and being bald now, just embrace it and try to have a good attitude about it and things like that. Sometimes people will stare. People will wonder what's going on with your hair, especially if they know you as a person that always had hair. Like, oh, you used to have braids, you used to have dreadlocks. Like, now he's got bald spots, or now he's bald. Like, yeah, just like you would think that about somebody else if you see them experiencing certain things, because it's not their norm, I guess you would say. So it's just best to just go ahead and embrace it. Even if you've got bald spots in there, it got to a point where I just became super comfortable. Not that I didn't care about my appearance or anything like that, but I just became extremely comfortable with the balding process. Having bald spots, having thinning spots, and things like that. Sometimes family asks, hey, why you got those bald spots just showing and stuff like that? I just, it's funny to me, and not even just like a pseudo way of coping with it, but just honestly, it just became, I just became very comfortable, so everybody's different. Everybody copes with things differently. Not to say that being bald or having thinning hair is the end of the world or something just super duper bad or something like that. But I'm just keeping it real. As a man, you do think about it, especially when it first starts happening. Like, dang, like, what's going on? Like, whoa. You may look at yourself like, okay, I look different. There's all types of stuff that goes through your mind, and I get it, but what I would suggest, if you're watching this video and you've got thinning hair, you're going bald, just embrace it. Be comfortable in your skin. Be confident in who you are. I think that's the best thing that I can say right there. That's the most important thing. Be confident. You may not like being bald. You may not like thinning and things like that. I know I didn't like it. Even to this day, if somebody asked me, Corey, would you rather have all your hair when you wake up in the morning or still be bald? Let me get all my hair back, please. That would be a quick, give me that back, please. I wouldn't even have to think about it, so I'm not going to sit here and act like, oh yeah, I'm bald now, whatever, I don't even care. I wish if I could have hair, I wouldn't even want it no more. Like, yeah, I would, yeah. If I can get my hair back tomorrow, yes, please give me that back. I'm just keeping it real here, but yeah, just embrace it. Be comfortable in your own skin. Don't try to hide it, don't try to disguise it. People are going to ask questions. People may joke about it, your friends, your family, co-workers, whoever. That's cool, just embrace it. A lot of the jokes are funny and stuff like that. Just embrace it and just, be comfortable in your own skin. And, I will tell you this, it makes you think about different things outside of your hair. It makes you think about makes you think about your beard. Before I had, when I had all my hair, I never had a beard. I just had a goatee. So you start looking at things differently. I'm talking like this is such a terrible thing, but it's not. But yeah, you might start looking at your beard differently or your facial hair differently if you have it. Maybe you're not able to grow facial hair. I know some people's beards and goatees don't grow in like that. So maybe you start looking at your style differently. Your shirts that you wear, or your outfits, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? You start to think about things a little differently. You may get into stylish hats or something like that. It's just, again, that's just my personal opinion. I feel like that's something that I experienced in regards to going bald. It makes you think about, like, how can I style this? How can I make this stylish? How can I go out here and be comfortable, just rocking the bald haircut. So you may switch up your wardrobe, or get you some nice hats or whatever. And that's all good. I would just suggest to anybody, don't try to purposely hide your head, your bald head or your bald spots and stuff like that. Like what I would suggest, like what I would say is just to practice it. And I know everybody has different comfort levels. What really helped me to be really confident about it, not that I was like super not confident about it or whatever, but what made me become really confident about it was just, I got to a point where it's like, okay, I don't care if you see the thinning spots. I don't care if I got a big old bald spot on the crown of my head. I just stopped caring altogether. And I don't want to come off like I didn't care about my appearance or who I am as a person, because that's not the case. I just got tired of, I just got to a point where it's like, whatever, because sometimes what would happen, especially when I was using the minoxidil in the hair fiber, sometimes my hat would fall off. It might be a windy day or something like that. And because you're thinking about it so much, you're thinking about, okay, is my hair going to grow back? How does it look today? How does it look next week? How does it look a half a year from now? Because that was constantly on my mind. Sometimes when my hat would blow off, I would feel kind of exposed, like, whoa, like, did somebody notice that I got this spot right here and this spot right here? And, some of my hair is missing. So, just keeping it real, be honest. I did used to think that sometimes, especially at work. I work in a public facing. Well, I used to work in a public facing environment. I see a lot of people every single day, and with the whole hat thing, it did get to a point where I remember I was out and about, and it was a windy day. It's kind of a funny story here. It was a windy day, and my hat blew into the street somewhere. So I'm like, like, oh man, now everybody gonna see my head. And I'm like, dang. So anyway, I remember I went into this bank. I'm talking to some of the bankers in there, and they see me on like a daily, well, they used to see me on like a daily basis. Okay. So I go in, and they're like, whoa, like, I didn't recognize who you were without your hat on. And I'm like, dang, I don't know if that's a good thing, is that a bad thing, like I say, I've always been a confident person in who I am as a person, But this whole hair thing, it got to me a little bit, just being honest. So I remember she told me that. I'm like, dang, like, But anyway, that just goes to show you, like, that whole hat thing. If you're wearing a hat or whatever you're wearing to disguise your baldness or your bald spots or whatever, I'm not saying you're wrong for it, but I would just say, the sooner you stop doing that, the sooner you stop trying to hide it and disguise it, I'm telling you, you'll breathe a sigh of relief. Because people are gonna say they're gonna say what they're gonna say, especially if they're used to seeing you, on a daily basis. Your family, your friends, whoever it is, your coworkers, they're used to seeing you, on a daily basis. So the more you postpone revealing your thinning hair or your bald head, the more you postpone debuting what your head really looks like, you just don't. Yeah, I would just suggest, just don't do it. Just get it over with. Just come into work one day. And I know it sounds extreme. You like, nah, you probably in that same space that I was in. Like, nah, I want to try to keep growing this. I want to use minoxidil. I want to use Rogaine. I want to use whatever is out there. I totally get it. I want to use hair fibers. I want to get a man wig. I want to get a hair transplant. Whatever. I get it. I thought all those thoughts. To this day, I still think that. To this day, I still think like, man, if I had the funds to do it, I may consider it a hair transplant. Just being honest, I still think about that from time to time. But anyway, point of this is just to say, just embrace it. The sooner you embrace it, the better. That's just my personal opinion. So feel free to chime in. Let me know what you guys think about this video. Maybe you're experienced going bald or thinning right now, and you got a lot of questions and concerns. Feel free to chime in. Let me know what your experience is. So thank you guys for checking out this video. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Peace out. Have a good day.